everything? Oh, I'm sorry. Can someone post a group meet info in the chat, please? So I won't go over everything because everything's not going to be relevant to the test. And I want to try to get through this chapter because we'll spend more time on chapter 3 than we need to on this chapter. Just a couple of notes before we get started that I did open back up that Canvas introduction, and then the chapter 1, the module 1 for chapter 1. I opened that back up. I had between the two classes, I had some new students coming in, and some people were having issue with Canvas. So between the two of those issues, I went on and opened it back up. So if you haven't had a chance to do some of those tasks that you want to do, then you have until 11:59 tonight. So that's that Canvas navigation, which is that syllabus test or quiz and that introduction, and then the chapter 1 module with summarizing one of the sociological perspectives. The book, I got my hard copy of the book yesterday in the mail. And I also got a electronic version. I know I talked about trying to share what I had, but the electronic version is not a version, it's not in a format that can be shared. It's more of a web-based, and I have to log in and view it. It's kind of like a web-based PowerPoint, and it has quizzes embedded in it. So it's not like a document I can download and share. So with that being said, probably what I've given you up until this point is all I'm gonna be able to give you. As far as the book is concerned, I will continue to give you the PowerPoints for each chapter that you can review, which is basically a synopsis of that chapter. You all know, but just work on getting that book. Again, doesn't matter to me if you have a Kindle version, some other form of ebook, or the hard copy. I would get the easiest, cheapest way that you possibly can. Doesn't matter. Any questions about any of that before we start chapter 2? All right. Again, I won't read these slides to you all. I'll go over, some of them and make note, but I just want to reference them, and you all have access to it, so you don't have to write anything down, and you can view it at your own leisure. So chapter 2, culture. My computer's been going slow. Okay, so the book gives us a definition of culture, which is basically how we act, what we think, and what we own collectively, how we form this society of ourselves, like what makes sense to us, what we're used to, what we're accustomed to. So it breaks it down into 2 types of culture, which is non-material and material. The non-material are like ideas, and material is physical. Let me share this with y'all. Let me get it. And again, excuse me because my computer is been giving me a little issue lately. Okay, so material versus non-material. Material, physical things, tangible things, things we can put our hands on. Objects, maybe old watch passed on from your great grandfather. Artifacts, clothing, pictures of your great grandparents or whatever. Those are things you can actually put your hands on that are important to your culture. Non-material are abstracts. You can't, intangible. You can't put your hands on them, but you know that they're there. They're formed. Religion, attitudes, how you believe and what you believe and what you value. That's just the difference in those two. Pretty self-explanatory. Let me go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so material and non-material. All right, culture shock. Culture shock is the basis of what your discussion question is about for this week. Some of you all have already done that, and between this class and the other, and y'all are knocking it out of the park. You grasp the topic really well. It's pretty easy to understand, but the examples that are given are great. So I don't think that y'all will have a hard time getting this. So we know the culture shock is some form of disorientation due to us being in an unfamiliar place, being in unfamiliar environments and customs and things that are just not normal to our everyday life. Some examples, like I said, some people have already done it, but some examples, does anybody want to share if you have done it or if you're thinking about what you want to write about, what some examples may be? Anybody want to share? If not, I have a couple examples.
I was gonna say if like I travel to another country and learn more about their religion, like say I go to like an Asian country and it's Buddhism, to me that would be a culture shock, being that I come from like Christianity, right? That would be an example.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Anybody want to add to that? Does culture shock have to happen is culture shock only if you travel to a foreign land? Can it happen where we are and where you are and on a day-to-day?
Yes, it can happen on a day-to-day.
Yes, it can.
Yeah, it can. She talked about religion. What if you just visit someone else's church that doesn't practice the same religion base as you do, but you're going with a friend, so you're gonna just go see what it's like? That could be a culture shock because you're not used to the rituals, the procedures, the format of what they're doing. So that can be a culture shock. someone talked in the last class about weather. Weather can attribute to a culture shock. I had a guy who said he was from Arizona. So he said it gets up to 120 in the summertime. So how it's been lately, like 50s and between 30s and 50s in the morning times is a real culture shock to him, because he is definitely not used to it being, to him it's cold. However, if you're from Chicago, that may not be as cold. You're talking about negative 20 is cold to a person from Chicago. So people have different levels of what their culture shock would be, depending on what they're used to. What about all of you coming from wherever you come from to Tuskegee, a small city with little resources? If you come from California, or if you come from New York, if you come from Florida, even Atlanta, come to a small city like Tuskegee would definitely be a culture shock. Everybody agree or want to add?
I can agree with like the places, because I'm from Nevada. So like coming here from like the summertime is completely different, especially like with the humidity.
Right. I've traveled to Nevada, and you're right, it's a different heat. So you have to be used to that. So y'all got it. Y'all are all right on target. So we'll move on. I think you understand what culture shock is. We don't need to talk about that. The book talks about, just touching on briefly, what the difference is between culture, which we just talked about, a nation and a society. And he gave the example that the United States is actually a nation and a society, that you don't have to fit into necessarily one and one only category, and that it can overlap into two. Because the United States definitely is a political entity, and it's also a society where people interact with each other. So, how many cultures are there? Well, the book talked about there's so many that it's really hard to tell, but how they gauge this information is from the census, and how many languages were reported as being spoken in the census. And we talked a little bit about the census in chapter 1 being a survey tool. Remember we talked about surveying? So someone from the Census Bureau mails you a paper, someone in your family fills it back. One of the questions are, what language is predominantly spoken in your home? You mark English, Spanish, whatever it is, you mail it back. Or someone, census worker, comes to your house, they ask you those questions, they write it down, and that's how they're reporting the number of languages, which translates into them trying to figure out how many cultures there are. So they're trying to equate the number of languages to however many cultures there are. And that's just their best way of doing it. So they're documenting about 382 right now. 166 are native. Globally, it's more than 7,000. So a lot of different languages. Does anybody on here speak more than one language or understand more than one language? Okay, no one in my other section did either.
I wish I did.
I know, it's important. Well, I'm not gonna say important, but it's definitely a good tool to to be able to do. Going on to symbols. So these are all what we'll talk about next. So like all of the different elements of culture. Symbols is the first one. It is what it says. So we're talking about signage. We're talking about um, when everyone, I should have thought about that. Do y'all know Prince's symbol? Where Prince's symbol was? The singer Prince, pop
Was it
artist Prince.
like a T or something?
Yeah, it's kind of like a. No, let me see if I can find it. But what if you see it, you'll know, right? You know, pretty much. Let's see if I can find it. The artist formerly known as Prince. Let me share this real quick. If I can get this out of here. Oh, hold on, y'all. Gosh, Lee. Let me try to find this and I'll keep talking. So basically what I'm just trying to get to is that okay, so y'all see symbol? Okay. So Prince went by that symbol. Like if you saw that symbol, you would know that it was Prince. So it became apparent in the culture, or a culture that was like a fan base culture, that that's what that meant. So if you saw it, you know what it meant. Nobody had to explain what it was. Nobody had to give a meaning or paragraph about what it was. You just knew that's what it meant, Prince. So that's just basically an example of a symbol. A symbol could be something as simple as a sign on the road that doesn't have words on it. Thinking stop sign does, maybe like a yield sign. So you know what that means without it actually having to say what it is, because we've become socially involved to know that that's what that means. A flashing light could be a symbol. We all know that a flashing light means caution, yield, look both ways, whatever. So language. Language is the second one. Language is just what it sounds like, just like symbols. Language is how we communicate. So that's going to be our English. That's going to be those who speak Spanish have their own, what we're going to call a subculture. They can communicate with each other. If you don't speak Spanish and you're around others that do, then you're not participating in their particular culture at that moment. So language is just what it sounds like. All right, values and beliefs. Values, well, I'll start with beliefs because values actually support beliefs. So belief is kind of like the end product. Belief is like what I what I hold to be true, what I think is important, what I like, what I want to matter to me. Values are how I support my belief. For instance, I would imagine that everyone on this call believes that education is important. So what are you going to do to show that education is important? Or what values are you going to hold to say that, to mean that education is important? You're going to value study time. You're going to value making the right decisions. If you have a test tomorrow, maybe not staying out as late. You're going to value your time. You're going to value your crowd. You're going to value your focus. So y'all understand what I'm going with that. So whatever your values are definitely going to support what your belief is overall. Let's see if I had something else for that. I value education in my home. So how I keep my kids structured on, I'll try to keep my kids structured on that. I value their study time. I value not allowing them my oldest to go to a basketball game when she has a test the next day. So I'm putting things in place in order to provide structure to actually follow through with the beliefs that I have. Okay. The key values of U.S. culture, they're talked about in the book. It's 10 of them. I think it's on page 51. They're listed here. I won't go into all of them. We may talk about them more in detail on Friday, but they're listed here. I do want to point out that it talks about in the book, like you see how the first one is equal opportunity as a key value, but then the last one is racism and group superiority. So the next slide talks about how there are some conflict within the value system itself. So we'll talk about that later. And values can change, as stated right here in the second point. Values can change. Do you think you value the same things that you did as you were 16? I bet that's changed. I hope that's changed. Some things aren't bad, but your focus changes, your environment changes. So as we know, our environment does influence us as we become in contact with different subcultures, that we start to think differently, hold different things to be important, and thus, changing our overall value system. All right. Sorry. So next, we're talking about norms. And underneath norms which are basically rules and expectations that, so like I talked about my kids in education. So the norm for us would be no electronics, no electronic use during the school week until you've either studied or done your homework. So my kids know that's a norm. They can expect that rule. They know that's the expectation for them. Now, their friends down the street might not have that same norm. And that might cause conflict in the sense that my kids want to know, well, why they have to do that and their friends don't have to. So that's just how you just keep structure based on what you believe in. Mores, folkways, and social control. It talks about that. We won't really get into that. Ideal and real culture. So ideal and real culture, it's kind of basically what it sounds like. Ideal culture is our thoughts of the way things should be. Real culture is, okay, we know the way things should be, but how are really things? The reality versus what we want to happen. So what's really happening versus what we want to happen. Some topics that I looked up were, all right, education will be a topic. So ideal culture versus real culture, we as a society would think that we say that education is important and education should be afforded to everyone equally, or as equally as possible. All right, ideally, that's the way things should be. But in real culture, we know that's not how it is. Some school-age kids don't have books. Some school-age kids don't have heat in the classrooms. Some school-age kids they have a virtual, we're talking about 5-year-olds having a virtual setting right now. They're not even able to go in school. So things just look a little different, and how the way things should be and how they really are different. What about healthy lifestyles? I think it's a widespread thought or fact that everyone would like to live a healthy lifestyle, ideally, but in real culture, do we eat the way that we should? Do we exercise the way that we should? Are we making good choices? So that's the thing that differentiates ideal and real, that fine line. Let me see. All right. I'm gonna breeze over this. Let me go back to technology. So the book describes technology as the knowledge that people use to make a way of life. And it goes on to talk about, I think it's 5 ways or 5 knowledge systems that people use. They talked about hunting and gathering is the first one. And these are just ways that how people in the past deal with their culture. So back when they used to hunt and gather food for crops, it describes that and talks about that. The second is horticulture and pastoralism. So they talk about that and the people in that culture. Agriculture, it talks about that. In industry, the production of goods and how that worked, machinery, and the post-industrial information technology. So it goes through good reading. It goes through all of that and talks about that. I will definitely know by Friday how I want the material narrowed down for what we need to pull out for chapter 2 quiz. And we'll talk about that on Friday. Last topic and note for chapter 2 that I'm going to point out is the difference in high culture and popular culture. High culture is pretty much reserved for the society's elite, your 1%ers, the one who have power, control, access, means. Examples are classical music, theater, fine arts, etc. Popular culture are patterns that are more widespread amongst the whole society, things that are generally acceptable, generally accessible to most of society. Sporting events, movies, what else did we come out? Certain trends. You see a trend that comes out on Instagram or TikTok, and it just keeps going. It may die down. I know I see some trends that was important. Oh no, well, that was really hot when I was a teen, and it's come back around certain time, again and again and again. My kids are doing dances that we used to do when I was a kid. So it definitely died down, but it's come back. It's been refreshed. So those trends are definitely staying a part of popular culture. I didn't talk about subculture earlier, but subculture is, if you think about like culture as an umbrella, and then you have or maybe a tree, probably be a better analogy, a tree, and then you branch, all the branches are definitely different subcultures. So I'm trying to think of one. Okay, all right, the example I used in the last class was maybe like the Divine Nine of all your sororities and fraternities. So your Divine Nine is going to be your umbrella. So they're all focused on community service and bettering the Black community. So, all right, you have the umbrella, but you start to break down, or you have that tree or umbrella, and then you start to break down each one individually, and they have their own subcultures, things that are going to make sense to only that particular group, actions that are only going to be relevant to that particular group. Any questions about that? So you have your different subcultures. When I talked about speaking Spanish, when you go into the nail shop, if it's predominantly ran by Asians, they speak a different language. So it kind of puts you, you pay attention to it because it's the difference. It's different from what you're used to, but they're operating in their own subculture at that moment. You're just entering for a brief period and then you're leaving, which is also someone for the first time going into a nail shop. I know when I took my daughter in years ago for the first time, she had a little bit of culture shock. She wasn't used to that. She didn't understand when they spoke to her how to really make out what they said, what they meant. She was unsure of herself. So those things are definitely part of subculture and another example of culture shock. The rest of this, I'm going to leave for today, and I'll determine if we even need to cover it. But I want to make sure you all know that these PowerPoints are all available to you all in that, let me see, in that module where you can access them. So I'm trying to do some different things because I know some people, everyone learns different and everyone takes things away differently than others. So I want to try to find a happy medium for the way we cover material. Try to find this, my computer. So we're in chapter 2, culture, and that is your PowerPoint, the link. So you shouldn't have any problems accessing it. Definitely look at those videos if you get a chance. I may not be the most fluent and give the best examples, but these videos or any other video that you may Google about the particular topic can give you just a better idea, if you need that, of what the topic, and digging further in about what it is. But I'm going to, like I said, by Friday, I'm going to know exactly and narrow down what's going to be pulled from chapter 2. Unrelated to this section, Monday, I'm going to give a practice quiz. I'm going to give you the opportunity to take a practice quiz. It's going to be in your module. You'll have all day to do it. Because I cannot attend my earlier class due to a work commitment. So I thought it would be a good opportunity to give them or present a practice quiz for some extra review. So I'll give you all the opportunity as well. It will be timed. It's just going to be questions from chapters 1 and 2, and I'm giving you 30 minutes. You'll have 3 attempts. It's not graded. It's just for extra practice. And mainly it's because I won't be in my earlier class, so I need them to do something. I need to have them something productive to do. So I wanted to make sure that y'all had the same information as them. We're still going to meet Monday as normal. You'll just have, when that module 3 opens up on Friday, you'll see it in there and you'll be able to take it at your leisure. It'll just be something else for y'all to do. We got 15 minutes. Any questions about Canvas or the chapter for today, the book? No one else? You're really low. Okay, I can hear you better now. What? Yeah, the chapter 2 assignment, I share my screen, is write a little paragraph on what causes culture shock. Give a example, and that's it. You can, that's due Saturday, 11:59. Yeah, so the next module is going to open up Friday, and it'll run from Friday all the way through the 29th, which is the following Saturday. So you all will have slightly different requirements than my earlier section. Because I am missing that class, I want them to do that assignment. I want them to do that practice quiz on Monday. However, you all won't have to. you all will have the option of doing it at your leisure, because we will meet Monday. I'll be out of, I have to do a deposition, and I'll be out of there by the time we are scheduled to meet. So I don't have any issues. We can, if y'all want, we can go over it. Y'all will have the study guide for chapter 2. So we'll be able to talk about that and anything else. But I just wanted y'all to have that same, like I said, the same opportunity and the same information as the other class. So I just thought it was a good chance for me to throw in a practice quiz to give them something to do or to work on, but they're still learning. No problem. Anything else for anybody? And you can, like, the videos are there for your review. If you don't want to look at them, you don't have to look at them. If the book and the PowerPoint and the lecture and the discussion is enough for you, that's fine. I'm not checking to see who's reviewed the video. That's just an extra tool to use if you need that. It's just a different point of view to cover the same material that we're going over. So, like I said, I don't know if it was this class, someone said that they're more of a visual learner. So I'm trying to capture everyone's style within the class. I don't want anybody to be at a disadvantage. So just going over again, if you didn't get that module 1 that module 1, you still have time. It's just writing on one of Sociology's theoretical perspectives, and you can get that done. It's just towards your participation grade. It's not a big grade, and that'll be it. Really, if nobody has anything, I'll stay on till the last